Hola a todos.
大家好
Salut à vous tous. Bonjour. Welcome to Singapore American School World Languages. My name is Omar Rashid, and I'm the Interim Director of World Languages this year. I've been at SAS for 6 years now, and I've taught French and Spanish in the middle school over the years.
My name is Hawkinson. I am a middle school Chinese teacher, but I have also taught in the elementary school. This year I'm also serving as part of a Chinese instructional coach.
Thank you for joining us, and the purpose of this message is to share a little bit about what our program means for your student. So the focus of the World Languages program here at Singapore American School is proficiency. What does that mean, Zhang Laoshi?
In our program, proficiency means the ability to communicate with other people in real-world contexts. We focus on speaking and listening because we feel if someone says, oh, you speak another language, it means you speak another language.
And what does that mean for me if let's say I just completed my first year in Mandarin Chinese and I find myself in Chinatown here in Singapore? What can I do with the Chinese that I've learned?
With our program's focus on real-world experiences, we want students to be able to head to Chinatown and be able to order something and communicate with them in Chinese.
And that sounds great. And as students progress in the program, our interpersonal listening and speaking focus is still there. However, it diminishes as students move up in their levels. So as they move up from novice to intermediate high, and then advanced, as well as the near native track in Chinese, the higher they move up, the lower the focus is on interpersonal listening and speaking to make room for literacy, so for our reading and writing, in order for students to develop their language skills at a higher level.
Great example of that is the Spanish program. When you get to grade 8 Spanish, you can take social studies in Spanish. Their literacy skills have developed to that point where they can read and understand and discuss all of that in Spanish.
So thanks for joining us here tonight. We want your child to have an excellent year learning languages.
And we want them to also appreciate the culture of the languages they're learning, whether it's French, Spanish, or Chinese.
Thanks so much for joining us, and we're so happy that you're with us here at Singapore American School. Muchas gracias.
谢谢大家.
Merci et bonsoir.
欢迎欢迎
Welcome to our back to school night.
This is our intermediate low Chinese class.
欢迎大家
This is our classroom where we have Chinese class every day. You can see we're all distanced and spread out, and we spend time washing the desks after each class. As you heard in the introduction at SAS, we use a proficiency system to guide progress for the students from K through 12. And students begin, if you look here, at the novice level, as they're just starting to make little short sentences, little phrases, and then as they move into the intermediate level, they expand their vocabulary and the sentence structures and what can they do with the language. And then moving right on up to the advanced level, which is where the students in high school would take the AP Chinese class. And this is also helpful for us as we consider what they can do with the language regarding proficiency. So accuracy is something we don't tend to have when we're just starting a language, but over time it can build and expand. The types of sentences, the length of sentences that students are using, including any connecting words, is text type. And function, of course, is why, what is the relationship for the purpose of using the language. And then the context is expanding the vocabulary pools and chunks that students can build from as they're learning to say new things in the language. And then finally, regarding the intermediate low level for language skills. So obviously our program focuses on interpersonal listening and speaking foremost, but we also want them to be able to understand and check that they can understand what they're listening to. So we have formative and summative assessments of that. And then for reading at the intermediate low, we're expanding what they can say. So and read. So we test them by the sentence level, but then later short paragraph and longer paragraph level. And finally, just quickly, presentation skills. We do think it's important for students to go through the process of preparing something and presenting that. So one example of that is intermediate low product where they create a travel video.
你好，我是廖老师 Hi, I'm Miss Liao. So now I'm going to tell you what we are going to learn in intermediate low this year. So we are going to learn 4 units. The first unit is called My School Life. By the end of this unit, students will be able to talk about the subjects they chose this year and be able to make some comments on the subjects. Besides that, students will be able to describe SAS facilities and also ask directions and give directions to a place in the school. The second unit is called After School. By the end of this unit, students will be able to talk about their hobbies and their family's hobbies in details. Besides that, they will also learn how to describe an activity, after-school activities, and express their ideas about their activities. For example, the venue, time, and duration of that activities, and if they like it or dislike it, and express the reasons, and also if they are good at it or not, and also explain the reasons. The third unit is called Weekends. By the end of this unit, students will be able to talk about the food preferences and also be able to order the food on the menu in Chinese and talk about their dining experiences in details. And finally, be able to describe their birthday parties in details. And the last unit is called Travel Tales. By the end of this unit, students will be able to make a weather report in Chinese and also be able to describe what activities people can do in each season and what clothes they can wear for each season. And also they will be able to talk about their travel plans and talk about their traveling experiences.
Right, so next up is what we are all very concerned about. How will your students be evaluated? So there are actually 2 ways. One is based on academic performance, and the other is based on learning behavior or learning attitude. Okay, so according to the grading standards, you can see from the chart here, we are based on proficiency and not the traditional A, B, C, and D. And the guidelines for advanced low, for example, and you will look at the score here, we have I3, I2, I1, and I stands for intermediate, and N stands for novice, and it gives you a little grade on where you stand. And of course, this part is really for the teachers to calculate, and it's a bit confusing for the parents. So probably easier for you is to consider what we have here. And this is actually a chart in your child's classroom. And it will show you for speaking and for listening and reading, that's a different standard. And one is exemplary, will be an I2, for example, and then meets and approaching as well as below. So that would probably be easier for you to understand. And that could be different from where you came from, so just please take note. Then secondly, you are evaluated on learning behavior, and that's based on organization, responsibility, collaboration, and reflection. So for responsibility, it is how you manage the academic materials, equipment, the space you have. Responsibility, are you completing and submitting work on time? Collaboration, being inclusive in the classroom, participating, giving constructive feedback to your friends, as well as reflection. So that's some self-help strategies, asking 3 before the teacher, thinking about ways that you are able to figure things out, use peer and teacher feedback, and as well as the rubric and examples to improve. So the next slide is where we're going to post all our assignments and materials, and that's one way you can be checking what is going on in the classroom. And so we will be posting assignments and materials on Google Classroom. So you can ask your student to take a look at what's been assigned. And for PowerSchool, the academic progress is posted on PowerSchool, updated as soon as possible based on students' assignments and tests, but also learning behavior will be there monthly.
So of course, as parents, we all want to do what we can for our children or help them if we can. It's a little difficult with Chinese because not all parents speak Chinese, or they're wondering what can they do at home to help them. So really, I think the most important thing is we can encourage them and ask them, hey, so what are you learning about now in Chinese? What activity did you do today in class? And then there are exercises they can do online that we use, for example, Quizlet or Duolingo, big fan of that. And then there's a Happy Chinese series that's available for free, and it's at their level. So it's really helpful for them to be able to understand so much. And we know Singapore is a very Chinese-speaking location, depending on where you go on the weekend. So hawker centers are great places where they can actually use their Chinese skills. If one or both of your parents speak Chinese at home, then please continue to use it so that the student gets exposure. And then there's other things here in Singapore. There's plays in Chinese, TV programs, Channel 8, if you're still watching cable TV, and then radio stations that are in Chinese too. So any other exposure you can give them, I think is really useful. And then there will be progress checked in Power School, so you'll see the scores as the year progresses. The other thing I wanted to mention is about parent-teacher conferences. So we've started off the year socially distanced and spaced and slowly getting to know your children and their areas of strength and areas for growth. Some of us know your children from previous years, so it's wonderful to be able to continue the connection with them. But then we do look forward to seeing you somehow in October 7th through 9th. Of course, we don't know the format for that yet, but it could be Zoom or in person, and we look forward to talking to you more about your child's progress then. And finally, I know some of you already know me, Zhang Laoshi, Mr. Hawkinson, but this is a bit about my family. My wife works in the elementary as a speech-language pathologist, and we've got 2 children. This is Bjorn in grade 10, and my daughter Aoife studies musical theater in London. And this is our dog Kaya, who I like to talk about. And a couple things about my background. It's my 13th year teaching Chinese. Very grateful to be able to do this. Love it. And my 9th year here at SAS. And then previously I was at a number of places, Hong Kong and Jakarta, Taipei. I have taught at the university level in Indiana and in Donghai University in Taiwan. And I got my teaching start in Los Angeles. Lastly, here are a couple other things about me that you may not know. We did publish a book with Beijing University Press. That was early on when we started creating music videos and with my children doing the singing. So we do have a YouTube site for Groovy Polly. So those tend to be used in the elementary level, not in the middle school level. So I don't really use those in our work. And I've been lucky here in Singapore to be able to appear on television a number of times. The last time was last fall. Okay, so you can reach me by email if you'd like to, but I want to say thank you so much, and I really look forward to working with your children this year. 谢谢。